Hi, this is Neal Walters, co-author of the best-selling book, The Art and Science of Success, Volume 3. In this life tip, I want to give you some ideas I heard from an EmpowerNet leader named Tony Rush. He's from Alabama, and he talks kind of with a southern accent. So if I talk like that during this video, you'll understand why. He said he was in front of an audience somewhere else, and he asked them, raise your hand if you want to be rich. And he said only about 10% of the people in the room actually raised their hands. Then he said raise your hand if you want to be financially independent, and about 90 to 100% of the people in the room raised their hand. Now what's the difference in those two questions? Is there really a difference between being rich or wealthy and being financially independent? Because if you're financially independent, that means you can basically do what you want. Your time is more available. You have time for the things you want to do and time for the loved ones in your life. And that's basically what is equivalent to rich. So what he said is some people have this mental block against the word rich. Maybe they think in their minds, well, I may be poor, but I'm a good father. Or I may be poor, but I go to church on Sundays. Or I may be poor, but whatever. Well, the point is you can be wealthy and be a good father, or be a good son, or go to church on Sundays, or whatever it is. They're not opposites of each other. Now, Tony gave another concept of a man who had a Parker pen, a nice one that he bought at a store a couple weeks ago, and he paid about $50 for it. And he was meeting with this person that he'd met, and the guy saw the pen in his pocket. He said, "Is that a Parker pen?" And he acted very interested in it, and he showed it to him. He says, "You know what? I'll give you $500 for that pen." And the man who bought it for $50 was just shocked, and he said, well, why would you do that? And the other man replied, he says, "Well, I'm a collector of Parker pens. And during the last 3 years, I've collected every pen that they've made except for that one. And in the city I'm in, it wasn't available. And they just quit producing it about a month ago. And you were lucky to find that one in any store. And so I'm willing to pay $500 for it because without that pen, my collection would not be complete." So in this story, the question or the moral is it taking advantage of that person to sell them this $50 pen for $500, because to them it's worth more than that. I think he got this story from the Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Waddle. I think that's it, a book that was written about 1910. And in that book, he gave an example that maybe you have a fur coat. And if you live in Texas, that fur coat may not be very valuable, so to you it's not worth much. But if you were to live in Alaska, or you were up where there are Eskimos or something, an Eskimo might find that fur coat very valuable, and they would be willing to pay a lot more for it. So it's a matter of perspective of the buyer as to what the product's really worth, not necessarily that of the seller. So the last point that Tony Rush made was, he says, I give you permission to be rich. I give you permission to be rich. Let me say it one more time. I give you permission to be rich. You could even say that to yourself, accenting different words. I give myself permission to be rich. I give myself permission to be rich. Anyway, think about that as you go through the next day, and hopefully this life tip will put you in a better place than you were the day before.